In this video, I'm going to teach you the exact 6-step framework that my teams use to onboard and activate hundreds of thousands of new users. At most SaaS companies, we see about 30 to 40% of new users are lost within the first 7 minutes, which is brutal. To think about how much time and energy companies spend to acquire these new accounts, only to get them to sign up and churn so quickly. And if you watch these accounts, I've spent hours and hours watching these accounts. Here's what you see. They sign up, poke around for a couple minutes, and then they close the browser and leave, and they never come back. And it drives growth nerds like us crazy. For context, my name is Andrew Kaplan. I'm a former 2-time head of growth, and I've spent years of my career focused on increasing activation rates and improving new user onboarding experiences. And through a ton of trial and error and failed experiments and learning a few things along the way, my teams have stumbled on a framework that helped us drive 40 to 50% activation rates. So in this video, I'm going to save you the years of trial and error, and I'm going to give you the framework so that you've got a proven roadmap. Step 1 in the process is to define what value looks like inside of your tool, to get crystal clear here. So when I think about what value is, right? Value is sort of a fuzzy term. When I think about it, and sometimes in SaaS we'll call this the activation or the aha moment, essentially it's when a user first experiences that main benefit that inspire them to sign up in the first place. The reason why this is so important when you work at a product-led SaaS company is because if you don't clearly understand what the value is, onboarding is a guessing game. And the two biggest things that you might falter is that one, you're going to spend way too much time helping a user get set up. There's a certain amount of time and attention that new users have when they come into your product. And if you take them through too many setup steps before you show them some tangible value, at some point, that momentum is going to run dry and they're going to leave and get frustrated. And the second thing that you could make a mistake with is guessing what features or what order of operations you should take them through. And so then onboarding becomes this endless tour of all the cool things that our product could do, and it's not focused on helping the user experience value on their terms. So that's the goal. When you've clearly defined what value is, you can guide a new user from blank account straight towards their first win. So you get the idea of why defining value is so important. But how do you do it? There's a few different ways. The first is if you're an early stage company, you could talk to users, right? The growth community loves to glorify some of the quantitative data. But in my experience, if you're an early stage company and you're thinking about like what's the core value of the product, I would recommend talking to some of your first few customers. Go and ask them, hey, would you mind, we're so happy that you're a happy customer here. Would you mind taking us back in time and explaining the moment when you first felt like you got some real value out of the product? Ask 10 to 20 of your first customers that question, and then look for trends in the answers. If you do have some data, then what you can do is go to the quantitative and confirm. Does people making it to this step correlate with higher retention and hopefully higher conversion from a free user to a paid subscriber? So that's how you can use the mix of qualitative data to get inputs from customers and then quantitative data to double check that it correlates. Step number 2 of this process is once you've defined what that value is, we want to start measuring and then reducing how long it takes a new user to experience that value for the first time. And what you learn is that the faster and the smaller that time to value is, typically, the higher your activation and ultimately retention and conversion metrics are on the back end. So how do you actually do it? How do you reduce time to value inside of their product? Here's 3 steps to help you get started. The first is to start by auditing your existing onboarding sequence. For most of us, it is filled with bottlenecks, unnecessary steps, and potential distractions in the journey from new user to experiencing that value. So go through your experience with fresh eyes. Pretend like you're a new account, not the power user that you are if you're an internal employee, and write down all of the steps and pages and workflows that a new user needs to complete in the process, and then ask yourself, is this absolutely necessary? So once you've audited your onboarding, the second step is to streamline the actions. Focus only on the actions that lead a user towards momentum into that activation journey. Simplify the path by removing as many distractions or tutorials or redundant fields or way too long setup as humanly possible. The third step is to use metrics and start tracking your progress. So if you haven't done this already, measuring your time to value and putting it somewhere important, either in your product analytics tool or in your core analytics tool or in your CRM, make this a field that someone can pull the data from so that you can compare and track this. But we want to get that number as small as possible and then also have the ability to compare how long it takes some of your best users to activate and how long it takes them to experience that value versus some of your less active or at risk of churning users. What you'll start to see is probably some correlation there. Tracking is the input to that. So step 3 of this process is all about using effective triggers to guide users towards success now that we know what success looks like and we've defined it. So what are triggers? Triggers are really just nudges that guide users to take an action. They are essential for keeping users on track, and especially when they're not sure what to do next. So triggers kind of act almost like a GPS. They remind users where to go, what to do next, and how to get there. There's a few different kinds of triggers that we might want to explore when it comes to in-product behavior. The first I would call in-app prompts. This might be your progress bars, your tooltips, or your pop-ups, things like that. Something that shows users how close they are to completing a task, something that keeps them motivated, something that points out the next steps in the process. Those are all ways that you could leverage progress bars and tooltips and pop-ups. Then you've got behavioral communications. Email, or if your product is a mobile app, might be some SMS or push notifications, but things that remind users what action it is to take next and maybe suggest some incomplete actions that they could finish. And then the third might be checklists. So some new user thing that lists out all of the actions that someone might take and suggests the next action, leading users towards that value moment. The key to effective triggers, regardless of which type you're leveraging, are timing and simplicity. The trigger should appear when users are ready to take action and when we know what the next step in the process towards value would be. And then simplicity, which is not suggesting all of the things that they could do, but providing just enough guidance to push them forward to one clear next step. At this stage in the process, you've got a pretty good baseline onboarding experience. We've defined what value looks like. We've reduced the friction and hopefully reduced the time to value in the process. And we've added clarity to the experience by designing effective prompts and triggers. Now, the mistake that most companies make is that they stop here, which essentially treats every single new user the exact same way. But we know intuitively that not everybody signs up for the same reasons. And so step 4 of this process is all about personalizing the experience to match the user goals. So the best way to do this, I call custom recipes, essentially different journeys or flows that a user can take on the journey from new account to experiencing that value in the first time. There are 4 steps to help you create custom recipes for your company. The first is that you've got to understand what the different recipes could be. So to do this, we need to really learn what our users' jobs to be done are, essentially what their goals are for signing up in the first place. To do this, I like to ask an open-ended question to every new account that comes in the door. Some flavor of, hey, thanks so much for signing up today. Would you mind sharing the main reason why you created an account? You want to ask it open-ended so that you get users' answers in their words, not in your words. Then, ideally, once you get a certain number of responses, you want to review the data and then see if you can categorize those responses into 4 or 5 common themes. Those are going to be your main goals, your main jobs to be done. Once you've identified the themes, start asking every new user to self-identify in a drop-down or self-select way. So when your next new user comes in the door, say, hey, thanks so much for being here. Which of these goals best describes the reason why you signed up? And then you've got those same 4 or 5 common themes that we just identified from the qualitative data. And then the 4th step in this process is to actually use that data to customize what happens inside of the product. So regardless of which prompt system you're using, if you're using onboarding tours or pop-ups or a checklist, you still want to get people towards the same value goal, towards that same aha moment, but the examples that you use, the way you talk about the application of features, and maybe even the order of the features that they might want to use or the templates that might help them get there will be slightly different based on the goal that they self-identify. So we want to learn what the custom goals are, allow users to self-identify and let us know which goal is most similar to the reason why they signed up. And then we want to, I call this delivering value on their terms. We want to tailor what happens inside of the product, create a recipe based on what we know about them and the goal they signed up for. Step 5 in this framework is to use ready-made templates to help your users experience value even quicker. So instead of starting all new users with a blank slate, especially companies that need a lot of stuff or have a long setup process, let's say you're an email product And you can't send an email if you don't have a list, right? You have to go upload a list, or you're a video product and the person doesn't have a video handy. Again, those would be blockers to someone experiencing the value if you don't have your stuff ready. And at many companies, maybe we don't have access to the stuff, or we don't have authority to upload the stuff. We don't have access to the file share system, or maybe we have to ping somebody and ask for it. All of these things would be blockers. So templates are a really elegant solution to this. So to do this for your company, the first step is to identify some of the common use cases, right? We just did this in the previous section where we talked about identifying the main jobs to be done. You can leverage that to then design some pre-made templates to help people accomplish that thing that you know they're signing up for. And then you can embed those templates either in the onboarding sequence, where during the onboarding you can let users apply a template if they'd like to. A good example of this is Miro, where if you sign up for Miro and you say, hey, my goal is to use Miro for strategy and planning, they suggest strategy and planning templates to help you get going. So identify the common use cases, figure out where pre-made templates might fit into the process, and then embed them either in the onboarding sequence to make it really easy for users to find those, or on the website so they could sign up using the template from the very jump. And the goal here isn't to replace a user eventually uploading their own stuff and using your product in their native way. It's to accelerate the engagement, showcase the product's potential, provide a ton of value, and let them experience that value moment with your stuff so that they're more likely to go get their stuff later. The sixth and final step to this process is to start building product momentum and onboarding momentum pre-signup, before the form submission ever happens. One way to do this is to embed a lightweight version of your product onto your website so that visitors can play with it and experience that value right away without having to fill out a form. And what I've learned is that a large population of users just want to see the product in action before they commit to signing up. So having a very simple embeddable version or lightweight version allows them to do that, and it makes them more likely to convert down the road. And so what you see when you do this is that activation grows, because the users who do sign up have already know what to expect. They've already seen what the product looks like. They've already played with it a little bit. And so it's much more likely that they're going to continue engaging in a very meaningful way. If you're looking to generate more momentum pre-signup, here's a couple things to keep in mind. The first is I love leveraging some interactive thing, whether it's an interactive demo or a lightweight version of your tool on the website that users can play with and interact with. Typically, if you do this, what you'll see are high double-digit conversion rates or interaction rates compared to the 2 to 4% who actually sign up. So it engages a much more meaningful population of your website visitors. And if you do this, you can also design meaningful interaction. You don't have to have all of the functionality available, just the functionality that maybe more likely leads to conversions, more likely leads to retention, and helps users start to picture what that value will be like. And again, build a momentum pre-signup. And the third thing to keep in mind is that throughout that process where folks are engaging in an ungated or interactive way before signing up, you can use nudges that do encourage the sign up to happen. So after a few interactions, maybe a certain amount of time or a certain amount of clicks or a certain amount of completions of whatever your product allows them to do, prompt them to sign up and continue with the progress they've made inside of the tool. So this way you can build momentum pre-signup, but still encourage folks to get inside of the tool and continue building that momentum in a real way. So there we've got it. The 6 steps to improving your onboarding and activation and saving more of the new users in the process. First, defining value and getting crystal clear on that aha experience and that aha moment inside of your tool. The second is reducing that time to value as much as possible. The third is guiding users along the way with effective prompts and triggers. And the fourth is not treating all users the same, but instead leveraging jobs to be done or their goals to personalize the onboarding experience, create onboarding recipes. The fifth is starting users in the middle and leveraging ready-made templates to help them experience the value faster. They don't have their stuff ready. And the sixth step is to build as much momentum as possible on the website before a user ever signs up, so that it increases the likeliness and the likelihood that they'll get deeper and more meaningful engagement when they do sign up. I hope that this was helpful. If it was, please like and subscribe so you can follow along for more content like this. If you have questions or comments or challenges that you're facing, please drop them in the comments below. I will do my best to respond to all of those. I hope this was helpful. See you in the next one.